Infrastructure is essential. It drives our livelihoods. But unfortunately for wildlife populations, it can be the death trap. As government agencies, we should be part of every infrastructure to be able to provide mitigation measures at the onset. One of our fundamental issues to address is beyond sensitization, it's the facilitation. Can we look for alternatives that can provide solutions to accommodate the living standards of our rural communities, but also allow the natural resource to thrive for the purposes of our wildlife. Western Conservation Area is one of the 8 conservation areas in Kenya. It stretches from our border with Sudan to the north, holding key wildlife species. Turkana County forms one of the 11 counties that are Western Conservation Area, and it is on our northernmost boundary. It borders 3 countries. And so here we are looking at an international or a transboundary area between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Uganda.
South Turkana National Reserve is about 1,070 square kilometers. We have wildlife in Loima, we have wildlife in Turkana West, we have wildlife in Turkana North. We also have wildlife in Turkana East. These are wildlife that are in our dispersal areas. They are not in any protected area. Lake Turkana is known because of the Nile crocodiles. We also have some other wildlife in the lake. We have the hippos. We also have a variety of birds. Lake Turkana is known because of the flamingos. We have the pelicans and many waterfall and terrestrial birds. The water levels in the Lake Turkana has risen, and it displaced most human beings and wildlife. This is actually brought the fact that now the crocodiles are moved closer to the people. And this is now actually heightening the human-wildlife conflict. Some people have lost their lives, some people have been injured, some crocodiles have also been killed in the event. But as Kenya Wildlife Service, we've been able to go forward and identify the problem, identify the hotspot areas, and be able to tell the communities. Because this is a community land, we've been able to tell them, look here, there are areas where you need to stay away from the crocodiles. The rise in the lake has also brought benefits. The Lake Turkana, especially the Ferguson Gulf, has a lot of fish at the moment. And this is actually, it has brought a lot of booming business in fish. Central Island National Park, it is the only national park in Turkana County, and it is in the middle of Lake Turkana. That is why it is called Central Island. It's a 5 square kilometers. It's a very small area, but with very unique and scenic features. Central Island is also known as a major breeding ground for fish and the many Nile crocodiles, over 1,000 Nile crocodiles. It's also a very important bird area.
Most of our rural areas are not zoned, and so our human settlement patterns are haphazard. Our farming activities are haphazard, and therefore you find that because wildlife movements are natural, there is the interference, and that is what causes friction, that is what causes unfriendly interactions between wildlife and people, and this is a great challenge. It is my hope that with the increased knowledge that we have today, and with the additional knowledge now of the data that we've covered, we should be able to zone out areas for land uses that then provide for wildlife conservation and for other livelihoods in a way that is compatible, but also possible for wildlife to thrive and for people to live without negative interactions.
We have conducted this survey in Turkana County during this month of July. The timing was quite right because currently we have got plenty of pasture. It has been wet in Turkana County, and depending on the habitat, because once we observe these animals out in the field, definitely the habitat must be right for them. There is the need for watering points, the need for the pasture, and the conditions are right. We employ the technique of aerial sample count as opposed to total count of animals. We still have got plenty of wildlife species in Turkana County. Specifically, we have counted quite a good number of oryx, elephants, and other species. Not only do we count wildlife, but we also take into consideration and also count livestock, free-ranging cattle. The main economic activity in a county like Turkana is livestock production. At the end of the day, when we do the spatial mapping, we will be able to see the kind of interaction that's between the pastoralists, the livestock, and the wildlife. Because out in the habitats that they live in, we don't have actually very concrete boundaries between livestock and wildlife.
This particular exercise is very crucial, especially for Turkana County, because once we know the number, we know where we can be able to concentrate in terms of human-wildlife conflict, in terms of our resources. Turkana County is one of the counties that is really encouraging and wants to give some space for wildlife. So it's also very important for them to understand which areas have bigger concentration of wildlife, so that we can be able to set those particular areas for wildlife. And we can only do that if this report comes out and we know where we can be able to concentrate.
Once we are through with this exercise, we expect the Kenya Wildlife Service to come down and sit with us and the stakeholders to see how best we can, just like Serengeti, where you have wildlife coming from Tanzania to Kenya and going back, to plan under similar circumstances, so that then wildlife is not restricted because they are coming to Kenya or going to South Sudan. Wildlife is let to flow within those areas, and then we can then make sure that wildlife crossing over those areas can be drawn into wildlife corridors where the wildlife can cross over and come over.
We are proud that in this county we are looking at increasing space for wildlife. Therefore, there are still pristine areas which we are working together with the county government to increase space for wildlife in the areas around Lotikipi. The intention is to gazette it as a national reserve, and Lotikipi to cover for rare wildlife that is found nowhere else around our country.